Hey guys, welcome to Mad Scientist BBQ. I'm Jeremy Yoder, and today we're doing something that's a little bit strange, but we like to do weird stuff sometimes just to see what happens because oftentimes that's how you learn. So the strange thing that we're doing today is we're going to do a 3, 2, 1 brisket. The first low and slow barbecue item I ever tried to cook was 3, 2, 1 ribs because I thought, well, there are directions. It's super simple. You go 3 hours unwrapped, 2 hours wrapped, 1 hour unwrapped again, and boom, you have perfect ribs. They didn't end up perfect, as you might have guessed. And if anybody has a perfect cook on their first item that they try to smoke, they're a better person than I am. But I tried it and tried to perfect it and realized that I don't even really like 3, 2, 1 ribs. One thing I did discover, though, is that when I work in reverse, I take something I like with brisket and apply it to ribs. It's my favorite way to do ribs. And what I'm talking about is wrapping ribs in tallow or lard and butcher paper. And I just really love those savory ribs. So I thought maybe it'll work the other way around. If I do 3, 2, 1 brisket, so cook brisket in the way that a lot of people recommend cooking ribs, maybe it could be good, maybe it could be a disaster, but stick with me and we're going to find out. So here we have our brisket. We're going to trim it up and season it just like normal. I'm going to use salt and pepper and then a little bit of my all-purpose seasoning on it. And then we're going to cook it fat side down in there. But before I trim and season this thing up, I need to start the fire in this Super 55. Now, I've seen people cook brisket super fast in a Gateway drum smoker. I don't have one of those, but I do have a Super 55 drum. And I've cooked a brisket really fast while waiting in line at Franklin Barbecue. If you want to see that, we'll click on the card here. But the drum is going to be the fastest way to get this thing cooked, and it'll be the easiest without risking burning the thing. Normally, I like to cook everything on offset smokers, and that's actually the subject of a future video, why hot and fast doesn't really work on offset smokers very well. But today, we're using the drum. I'm going to get some charcoal and some wood chunks. We're going to light it up, and then we'll get to trimming and seasoning. You can get yours at MadScientistBBQ.com. So I'm going to put it on fat side down. Smoke. Now that I have the brisket on, I'm going to wait probably an hour and then temp it. Right now we're running about 300 degrees, and the temp is going to tell me whether or not we need to bump things up or if we need to slow things down, because I want to go 3 hours unwrapped and see if that's enough time to really get the bark and the color that we're after. So I'm going to be relying heavily on my ThermaPen 1. This is the best barbecue tool. So there are two tools that I use every time I cook pretty much. One is a shovel, one is my ThermaPen 1. It is the best instant read thermometer on the market, and right now if you click on the link in my description, you're going to get the best deal you're going to find anywhere. Better than Amazon, better than the ThermoWorks website. It is exclusive only to me right now, so it is the best deal. You're not going to find a better deal anywhere else. If you've ever thought about getting a ThermaPen 1 and thought, I don't know if I want to spend the money right now is the time, because it's only for a week. You only have a few days, and as of the end of March, it's going to be over. So now's the time to strike while the iron's hot and order yourself one. I highly, highly recommend it. I have wasted more money on getting cheap thermometers that broke or rusted or stopped working for various reasons than I spent on my ThermaPens. It's a staple. Every time I cook, I have my ThermaPen with me. So check out that link in the description if you're interested. This is not a sponsored video, but I do have an affiliate link, so it helps my channel and you save money by getting a ThermaPen 1 through that link today. been a little bit over an hour, so we're going to check in on this brisket. Smoky, smoky, smoky. All right, first let's check the temp. 112 after about an hour and 15 minutes, so that's a good sign. Let's see if anything's burning. Kind of looks like a tiger. So these lines are definitely darker, but nothing's burning. And actually the fat's beginning to render just a little bit. This side actually has really nice color, so I'm pleased with that. So for an hour and about 15 minutes in, I'm really pleased with that. The color's really nice. It's getting darker and darker. The internal temp is on its way to where we need it to be. And so what we're going to check on in probably another hour or so is bark formation and if the fat is beginning to render. And then we'll make a kind of a final decision as we push to that 3-hour mark, because we're trying to do our best to go 3 hours unwrapped, 2 hours wrapped in foil, and 1 hour unwrapped again. So we'll see. We're going to evaluate as we go, but I'm going to try my best to stick to those time limits because it's a 3-2-1 test. If I go changing the times, it's no longer a 3-2-1 test. So we'll check back in with you in about an hour. All right, we're about 2 hours and 15 minutes into this cook. We've been running about 325 degrees the entire time. And the reason you can run at a higher temperature in something like a drum like this is because you have severely reduced airflow. Because high temperatures and high airflow are really harsh for cooking something. And because the airflow is reduced, we can cook at higher temperatures and get away with it. So 2 hours and 15 minutes in, this is our last chance to kind of make an adjustment before we hit that 3-hour mark and we have to wrap. So I'm going to take a temp and we're going to take a look. Ooh, it's pretty good. Temp of 145, 146. Let's take a look. I might have to flip this guy over. All right, actually starting to get really nice color. That's better than I thought. Let's look at this side. As you guys can see, well, it smells incredible. But the fat is beginning to render there. That's really what we want to see. Quite pleased with that. Everything's still soft. Okay, this is going about as well as I could hope for. I'm going to put it back down, fat side down still. We'll let this thing roll. I'm going to change it up. We're going fat side down still because I want to continue rendering that fat. And then when it's wrapped, I'll probably go meat side down to make sure everything stays soft there. And then, depending on how it looks when it comes out of the wrap, I'm going to choose fat side down or fat side up to finish the whole thing off. So we'll see you 3 hours in when it's time to wrap. It's been 3 hours. It's time to get this thing out and see where we are. Certainly looks juicy. Looks like we got good bark. Flip it over. Okay. That's rendering pretty well. The top side doesn't look nearly as pretty as the underside. I guess that's all dependent on what you view as the top. All right, so I'm going to go fat side up when I wrap here. The reason is because now that the meat side is protected, it can go towards the heat down below. And I want this to look like a regular brisket that we would cook for kind of restaurant style or home eating instead of a competition brisket. Competition brisket's totally different. You go meat side up the whole time. It's a completely separate thing that I'm not trying to recreate here. But what I want to do is go 2 hours just like this, and then for the last hour, we'll probably put it down meat side down to try to firm up that bark and try to get some uniformity on the fat side. But regardless, until then, let's wrap this guy up. Let's get an internal temp before we wrap this guy up here. We have, ooh, in the 170s. That's actually really good. By the way, if you ever thought about getting a ThermaPen 1, if you click on the link in the description, you will get the lowest price available anywhere. Not available on any other YouTube channels, on any other websites, any other TikToks, anywhere else. This is literally the best price you're going to find anywhere. So if there's ever a time, it's right now. Let's wrap this thing up. And you might be saying to yourself, why are you wrapping in foil? You never wrap in foil. You're right. But the 3-2-1 method is 3 hours unwrapped, 2 hours in foil, 1 hour unwrapped again. So for the sake of the test, we got to use foil. Do I think it would be better if I used some paper and some tallow? Yeah, I do. But for the sake of science, we got to do it this way. Let's find out. For the next 2 hours, we're going to go at the same temperature, just about 325. Might be as low as 320, might be as high as 330. But I tried to choose a temperature that I thought would get us close for that 3-2-1 method. But we'll check back in 2 hours. We're going to unwrap it and see if the bark has held on. I have a feeling it's not quite going to, but then we're going to put it back on for 1 more hour, completely unwrapped, and see if we can reform that bark. Okay, we are to 1 hour and 59 minutes wrapped, and I'm curious to know what the temperature is. We're still rocking right at 325 on this thing, and typically to get tenderness, we need to see, cook this short, we need to see 205, 208, maybe even 210. But let's just see where we are. I don't know why I'm nervous. I don't have anything invested in this method, but I'm like hoping for 200 something. Not bad. 205, 206. I am quite pleased with that. Let's get this thing out, and now we got to unwrap it. We'll take a peek at how it's looking, and then we got to put it back on, firm up some bark here. Oh, it smells good. Me man, me make meat. Me cook with fire. That's not bad. Let's see if the bark held up on the underside. So-so. Could be much worse. Ooh, that fat did render super well. All right, let's see if we can set this bark one more time. We'll put it back on, check back in precisely 60 minutes. Temp is going to drop, I'm sure, though. I'm going fat side up on this because I want the color on the top to look as close to a regular brisket as possible. Also, one thing you should know is that the temp after an hour is probably going to be lower than the temp is right now, because evaporative cooling, which was prevented by wrapping this thing in aluminum foil, well, it was severely reduced by wrapping this thing in aluminum foil. The evaporative cooling is going to make that thing cool off faster than the heat is getting to it in all likelihood. Granted, I've never done this before, but that's my best guess as to what's going to happen. It'll probably be in the 190s after about an hour or so. But what we're looking for is that bark formation, and another thing is that it's not just temperature that determines the tenderness, it's time and temperature. Think of recipes that call for something to be, sous vide for a long time. It still gets really tender. So I'm hoping that having multiple hours at about 200 degrees is going to make this thing nice and tender. It actually felt pretty tender. It felt a little tight in the flat still, but it remains to be seen. I'm going to clean this up and check back in with you in an hour. All right, guys, we are coming up on the 1 hour mark. I had my timer set, so I didn't miss this ending here. Been waiting 59 minutes and 55 seconds. As soon as this goes off, we're going to pull out that brisket. I'm getting flashbacks to the morning. All right. Ooh. Okay, the top side actually looks pretty good now. Let's see the bottom. Did it burn? I think the bottom looks all right. Let's check the temp here. Stayed about the same. That's hotter. That's hotter. That's hot. And guys, don't forget, Thermapen, exclusive deal going on right now. Click on the link in the description. You're not going to find it anywhere that's cheaper on any website or any influencer page. Literally, this is the cheapest price you're going to find anywhere. So, check it out. Look at that. Look at that. Juicy. This feels really nice. The fat's actually rendered remarkably well. Not quite the same as a 14-hour cook that you get on an offset. The best fat render is actually right here on this thin part where it's just really soft and you can feel it squish underneath. And obviously you see the juice coming out. What I'm going to do is kind of loosely wrap this in foil and let it cool till it's about 145 degrees. And then we're going to slice it up. My guess is it's going to be very juicy. I think it's going to have some smoke flavor. It's not going to be super strong. I think there might be some textural issues, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't want to poison the well here. So I'm going to loosely wrap this in foil. If you guys are wondering, I kind of went back and forth on whether or not I should rest it overnight like I usually do briskets. But keeping with the 3-2-1 method, there's no protocol for an overnight rest for ribs. So I'm just going to let this cool till serving temperature and slice it up. So we'll see. You like those karate chopping skills? Loosely. So I'm going to check back in with you guys in a little while when we slice this thing up. All right, it's finally time. And I just want to tell you, the smell that I'm getting kind of is almost like that burger smell. So I think there's probably a significant amount of fat smoke dripping into the coals and is providing a different aroma and probably a different flavor on this. But we're going to see. Smells really good. Kind of smells like a burger. For the taste test, I'm going to keep this pretty simple. I'm going to take a bite from the flat, take a bite from the point, and then a burn end. See how we did. I think those are the 3 points we want to hit. No pun intended there. But let me get slicing. A little crispy. A little crispy. So the fat's rendered well. This meat side is crispy. So we should have gone fat side down toward the end. I was thinking for the last hour we might get away with it. Maybe not. Let's get this guy. First up, we have some of the flat here. The bottom is definitely dried out, so it's probably going to have a little bit of beef jerky texture. And so if I were going back and doing it again, I would go fat down the whole time except when it was wrapped, because it was only after the wrap that we went meat side down that this started to crisp up. Before that, everything was soft. So for next time, if anybody wants to try it, let's see. It's actually kind of nice. Smoke flavor is mild. There's a smoke ring there for sure, but not much of one. Let me try this end. So the inside of the flat isn't dried out. The fat on top is actually rendered nicely. The bark on the fat side is pretty good. Just the bottom is kind of dried out, and you lose some of that smoke flavor. I would like more smoke flavor, and I'd just like the meat to relax more, because what can happen is when you cook a brisket really quickly, you can break down a lot of those connective tissues, but those muscle fibers haven't had enough time to sweat out as much water. So those muscle fibers are still full of water, still pretty taut. And then you get tenderness, but it's not the same kind of bite. When you take a bite of a properly cooked brisket that's had plenty of time to sweat out water and shrink up, when you take that bite, it just kind of gives way. And here you still have some firmness. It's still coming apart easily. So it is tender. It's just not that same tenderness and texture that I want from a properly cooked brisket. Also, the smoke flavor isn't quite what I would like, and the meat side has been dried out because we went meat side toward the fire for the last hour. Even that was too much for the meat side to endure. So strategic mistake there. Let's try the point. If you look at this point, the fat on top is rendered nicely. This point is definitely overcooked, though. I can tell that it's going to be grainy, but regardless, I need to try it. So let me cut a little chunk of this. There's a little bit of a smoke ring. The meat isn't as dried out, probably because there was fat kind of basting the underside of that meat and protecting it. But let's see here. I'm just going to cut this down to size. Single bite. Here we go. Smells like a burger. Very faint smoke flavor. It could just be because I was out here in the smoke the whole time. It tastes like the juiciest burger of all time. Like, I mean, if I had a blind taste test and somebody gave it to me, I'd say it was a Wagyu burger. That's kind of what it seems like to me. It's just kind of falling apart, super juicy, super rich. Very faint smoke flavor, and that smoke flavor is that fat smoke, kind of the sweet smell that you smell when burgers are cooking. So that's what I'd give that. Now, let's try a burn end. Again, fat's rendered pretty well. More of that burger smell. A little more texture than on the previous bite of point. I think applying brisket technique to ribs was something I absolutely love and adopted, but doing the reverse, I really don't care for it. I wouldn't recommend it. I would probably go significantly cooler. If I were trying to recreate this in a similar amount of time, I would probably go 275 on the drum, fat side down the entire time, wrap at the end with paper and tallow, and I think you'd probably get something that's going to be smokier. It's going to have more of the texture that you want, and yeah, being honest, I wouldn't recommend it. Is it bad? No. Is it what I have in my head is what I want brisket to taste like, what I want the texture to be like, what I envision when I start a brisket cook? No, it's not like that at all. Apart from the meat side getting dried out and kind of having that jerky texture, it's not bad, but 2 out of 10 would not recommend. So that's what you learn sometimes. Now, I think there are definitely ways to improve it, but the goal of the test was to go 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour at the same temp. And we accomplished that goal, and we learned it's not a great way to cook brisket. So there's a reason why people cook brisket kind of in stages and gradually ramp up temperatures, and they do it in things like offset smokers, or they do it on a drum at a much lower temperature. So for me, I know that you can use drums to cook competition-winning barbecue. I know you can use drums to cook really tasty backyard barbecue. Doing it this way on a drum, would not recommend. All right, now I got the real taste tester. Some people have their dogs as taste testers because their dogs are always going to be like, oh, that was delicious. Can I have some more? But if you feed your wife, she's going to tell you, I didn't like that.
Wow.
What do you think?
It definitely tastes like a burger.
Doesn't it taste? See? Okay. It doesn't taste like if somebody gave that to you and said, that's a Wagyu burger, like you were blindfolded and said, that's a Wagyu burger, would you believe it?
Apart from the texture, yeah.
I don't know. These are just my thoughts and something that you guys can play with. If you guys have a method that might work better trying to do this on a drum, let me know in the comments. I know a lot of people cook a lot of great food on drums, and I've cooked some food that I really love on a drum. I just haven't tried it this way, especially for something like a brisket, trying to truncate the whole cook time into 6 hours and spend some time wrapped in foil. And I think it was an effort that was doomed from the start, but now we know, and now you guys don't have to ruin a brisket trying something crazy like this, and you could use this hopefully as a learning opportunity the way I am, so I know how I might approach something similar in the future. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, do not forget, I'm telling you guys, do not forget to check out the link in the description for the Thermapen. It is literally the best price for a Thermapen 1 you're going to find anywhere. You're not going to find it on any other YouTube channel. You're not going to find it on any other TikTok. You're not going to find it on any other website. This is literally the only link in the universe that will give you this price right now. And it's only for 7 days. So don't miss it. Click on the link. Take advantage of the opportunity. And if you want to follow me on other social media like X or Instagram or Patreon, you can follow me at Mad Scientist BBQ. I'll see you guys next time.